starring Scott Tepperman, Joel D. Wynkoop, Jim O'Rear, written by Tim Ritter, directed by Tim Ritter and Scott Tepperman. When Truth or Dare: A Critical Madness was released in 1986, I'm sure not too many people would have thought that the franchise would have hit its fifth installment here in 2018, and director Tim Ritter again unleashes a new chapter with the assistance of Scott Tepperman. Eyes on the road, people, I dared you. Truth or Dare 5 is in our line of sight, so let's cut this one open and see what leaks out. Tepperman, doing double duty, plays mental patient Daxton Hackman, a seemingly tepid soul who's getting a chance to take a big ol' bite out of the freedom buffet, especially since the hospital that used to house him has run into some serious financial trouble and has begun cutting patients loose. Never a good idea, by the way. In any event, his doctor, O'Rear, promises to be there for him every step of the way during his rehabilitation and eventual progression back into society, and Hackman celebrates his newfound life by ending one as soon as his feet have hit unrestrained ground. We are also staring into the eyes of a new copper-masked Madman, as the original has been set free, leaving Hackman to pick up the reins, or mask, whichever you prefer. The trail he leads is extensive and bloody for sure, and it leads, at least he hopes it will, directly to the door of Detective Don Hess, Wynkoop, the man he blames for allowing the original Madman to bolt without recourse, leaving Hackman scarred both mentally and physically. The film uses ample measures of flashback footage to assist the viewer who might not have seen the previous movies to piece things together, although this go-round is a direct sequel to the 1986 model and connects quite nicely. The look and feel of the presentation itself evokes memories of those glorious VHS rental times, grainy, a bit starched in color, and has an intently low-budget aura to it. The plot, while simple in nature, doesn't rely too heavily on having the viewer blown away with plot twists and hidden surprises. This one's in your face and direct to the point. Tepperman plays the lead quite nicely, as he can be the guy you almost feel for in some spots, then to test his character's existence when shit hits the fan. Duality is a bonus in character portrayal, and mission accomplished, I'd have to say. At the end of it all, I'd advise anyone who has not seen any of the previous Truth or Dare films to hunt them down and do a little bit of binging, for it will assist in the storyline navigation, or what the hell. Fire this one up and connect the bloody dots for yourself if you feel adventurous. Definitely worth a watch and a nice addition to the franchise. Podcast, play in new window, download, subscribe, Apple Podcasts, Android, RSS, subscribe to Who Goes There podcast on iTunes. Author of Calvin and Hobbes, Bill Watterson, once said, "You can't just turn on creativity like a faucet. You have to be in the right mood." What mood is that? Last minute panic? We completely agree, Bill. For this reason, we chose to wait until the last minute to choose this week's movie, and boy did it get our creative juices flowing. This week, we're going on a trip with 2018's Anonymous 616. A group of 4 friends take DMT and one begins to think he's God. I personally do not see any way that this can go wrong. In addition to our delicately crafted critiques of modern cinema, Jorge brings you some disturbing dental stories, 333, and Matt explains one of his greatest fears. We also talk about exactly why we would want to own the stunt cock used in a Serbian film, 2314. Break. Review starts at 40 to 32. Hey, dollface. How about those Mets? How about the Who Goes There podcast episode 165? If you enjoy the show, please consider joining our Patreon subscribers. For less than the cost of a beer, you get bonus content, exclusive merchandise, special giveaways, and you get to help us continue doing what we love. The Who Goes There podcast is available to subscribe to on iTunes right here. Not an iTunes user? You can listen on our Dread Central page. Can't get enough? We also do that social media shit. You'll find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Twitch, and YouTube. Starring Scout Taylor Compton, Lou Temple, Olivia Luccardi. Written by Mark H. Young and Adam Frazier. Directed by Mark H. Young. A Rob Zombie family reunion of sorts, Farrell's main draw for horror buffs, especially those of us who frequent the convention circuit, is the inclusion of fan favorites Scout Taylor Compton and Lou Temple. Starring in Zombies Halloween and its sequel made Scott a part of slasher history, and Temple, having gone toe-to-toe with Michael Myers in Zombies remake as well, also turned up in 31. Zombies Funhouse version of The Running Man. This is, however, the first time both actors appear on screen together, and that pairing is probably the most compelling reason to give director Mark H. Young's frenzied backwoods survival tale a chance. Another reason, perhaps, is the somewhat fresh approach of a survivalist horror movie where the conflict is women versus nature instead of man. Arguably, it may not even be necessary to mention that Taylor Compton's character, Alice, is in a same-sex relationship with Jules Luccardi, but, in this case, it immediately makes both characters a little more interesting simply because it creates a slightly different dynamic. That allows for some story choices and character moments that play with certain genre expectations and breathe a little fresh air into the cliched, final girl caricature. When their camping trip takes a detour and Alice and Jules' group are attacked by a rabid man creature, it's ultimately up to them to survive nature's unleashed abominations before they turn feral, too. Lacking any real bite early on, feral does pick up a little momentum when the character exposition begins in the form of a smarmy woodsman named Talbot Temple. Introduced as a threatening hillbilly with a dark past, Talbot could have been another hackneyed trope only existing to deliver the backstory, but Temple actually has some moments to shine here instead of the usual cameo he's relegated to in micro-budget horror films. It's not Hepburn and Tracy by any means, but the interactions between Alice and Talbot are the highlights of Feral, and it's a minor delight to see Taylor Compton and Temple working together in a few scenes that manage to muster up some claustrophobic intensity as the victims-turned-predators begin to multiply. As for the creatures themselves, there is some explosive stunt work captured here, and the physicality of the actors, who only appear as the feral beasts, breathe a lot of life into the special effects makeup work of Jerry Constantine and his team. Possibly falling a little too in love with the makeup and look of the feral, scenes where the creatures are revealed in close-up linger a little too long, causing some promising moments to wind up looking like a makeup test. They are also dispensed of a little too quickly at times, which takes away from their ferocity. When they should be ripping and raging, they're posing almost like a group of auditioning Cenobites that didn't make the cut. Again, if you're fans of Scout Taylor Compton and Lou Temple, and you should be, Feral delivers and gives both performers enough screen time to show them the respect that they richly deserve. Sure, they may not be horror royalty, but they definitely hold court among their admirers, especially when they're trapped in a cabin out in the middle of the woods. Feral is in select theaters now and on VOD from IFC Midnight. Summary: Feral takes a bite out of the horror genre but doesn't quite leave its mark. Starring Anne Carlisle, Paul A.E. Shepard, Susan Daukes, Otto von Werner. Directed by Slava Sucherman. Distributed by Vinegar Syndrome. Succinctly summing up, a slice-of-life avant-garde feature film can be difficult when the picture relies heavily on the audio-visual experience and not necessarily the story. Liquid Sky, 1982, is an acid-fueled trip through the emerging New Wave movement, viewed through the vapid lens of the fashion world, where drugs and sex are a commodity to be frequently bartered. The film juxtaposes the grimy and gritty streets of New York City with liberal use of bright, flashy neon, creating an aesthetic that both revels in the post-punk subculture and looks forward to the eye-popping pastels that would come to define the '80s. Within this kaleidoscope is a story about androgyny, rampant drug use, pleasures of the flesh, sexual abuse, and tiny invisible aliens that subsist on the endorphins released when people either get high or get down. As director Slava Sucherman states in the extras, the idea was to craft a unique visual palette, the likes of which cinemagoers maybe hadn't seen before. In that respect, Sucherman capably succeeded. This is true subversive cinema, not for the mainstream. Margaret Ann Carlyle is an androgynous NYC fashion model, looking to get her big break into certifiable stardom. Her nightclub fashion shows bring out all the fringe of the city: drug users, sexual deviants, flamboyant personalities, and her rival, Jamie, also Carlyle, who is a fiend for cocaine. Margaret's girlfriend, Adrienne Pauley Shepard, is a coke dealer whom Jimmy constantly harasses for a quick high, despite the fact he never has any money. Sex is his usual currency, consensual and otherwise. For reasons unknown, though easy to glean, a tiny UFO has landed on top of the apartment building in which Margaret lives. The visitors here to feast on endorphins released by the brain during drug use, or explosive, orgasmic sex. Jimmy has lunch with his mother, Sylvia, Susan Daukes, a television producer who he sees as little more than a blank check. Sylvia also happens to live across the street from Margaret's building, making it the perfect vantage point for scientist Johann Hoffmann, Otto von Werner, to observe the till now undiscovered Minute aliens and their spacecraft. Margaret, meanwhile, finds herself in one compromising sexual position after the next, often against her will, though these, let's be honest here and call them, rapes tend to end with her perpetrators dead, a thin crystalline sliver embedded within their skulls, brain removed. Margaret doesn't quite understand why, but the frequent cause and effect makes her imagine she has unbridled power, able to kill anyone that has sex with her. Eventually, Margaret comes to use this power to destroy anyone who crosses or uses her, which, as the film will show, is a significant number of people. Little does she know, all this time her saviors have been invisible to the naked eye and living atop her building. The above plot synopsis barely scratches the surface of the weird and insane places this film travels. The biggest takeaway here should be the ground Sucherman was breaking, which feels very much in the vein of something Andy Warhol might have been behind. The cast is comprised of societal outcasts, populated by homosexuals, ambiguous individuals, gender fluidity, heroin users, club cronies, kink, vulgarity, all things that in no way conform to societal standards of normality. Carlyle pulls double duty, playing two characters, one reprehensible, the other vaguely sympathetic, yet both fall under the rubric of blurred lines. They embody qualities of both masculinity and femininity. Sucherman embraces the abstract and absurd, delivering a film that is fiercely independent and wholly incapable of direct categorization. Driving this tour de force is a cutting-edge synth score that is constantly active and consistently weird. A trio made up of Sucherman, Clive Smith, and Brenda I. Hutchinson composed the soundtrack, and it sounds alien and otherworldly while also capturing the essence of the new wave. The electronic cues and deep bass beats are energetic and repetitive, often making use of bizarre time signatures. Large portions of it reminded me of John Massari's stellar synth score to Killer Clowns from Outer Space, 1988, as the synthesizer sounds are nearly identical in some passages. The grooves are infectious and wonderfully lo-fi, adding an audible assault to complement the visual feast. Still, Liquid Sky is something of a challenging watch, especially a first-time viewing when expectations are impossible to calibrate. Because Sucherman purposely made his film so esoteric and obtuse, it can be tough to settle into a comfortable viewing mindset, because so much of the film is uncomfortable and unconventional. the acting quality is passable enough that viewers may find themselves watching the film less as a veritable feature and more a stage, lengthy piece of performance art, which it is in certain respects. Liquid Sky doesn't lampoon the period or people associated with it, though it does offer an exaggeration of current trends. One thing is for sure, this is bespoke filmmaking at its core and a shining example of the marriage between emerging trends and psychedelic euphoria. Mind-blowing stuff. Vinegar Syndrome is consistently lauded for their A.V. work and, boy, did they ever knock this one out of the atmosphere. The 1.85, 1080p picture is pristine, making it almost impossible to believe this is a low-budget indie from '82. The original 35mm negative has been given new life via 4K scan, with the resulting image looking nearly flawless. Aside from literally 2 or 3 white flecks, the picture is immaculate. Film grain has been smoothed out and minimized without the use of waxy DNR. Fine detail is exquisite, adding a sense of true life to these shiny and squalid environments. Colors are richly saturated and pop off the screen, just as eye-catching neon might do in real life. Color filters are used frequently, bathing the image in hues of blue or green or whatever color fits the intended mood. Skin tones are spot on and accurate. There is nothing worth complaining about, making this one of the finest images Blu-ray is capable of producing. Although the audio is a single-channel English DTS HDMA 1.0 mono track, you'd never know it from the sonic quality. The synthesized score is catchy and constant, causing the film's sound field to be brimming with life at every moment. The aggressive mix and high levels cause a mild sensation of discomfort and unease for viewers, ensuring the picture is never viewed too comfortably. Dialogue is understandable and totally clean, with no indication of hissing or pops at any point. Subtitles are available in English. An introduction is available before the feature begins, with director Slava Sukerman giving viewers a brief greeting along with praise for Vinegar Syndrome's new home video edition. An audio commentary is available, featuring director Slava Sukerman. The disc also contains an isolated soundtrack, highlighting that groundbreaking score. Interview with Slava Sukerman is a recent chat with a Russian director, who touches upon his career, influences, and the legacy of his most endearing creation. Interview with Anne Carlisle is a similarly themed chat, with the leading lady discussing topics ranging from her early beginnings to where her career has taken her now. Liquid Sky Revisited is a nearly hour-long documentary covering all aspects of the film's production, with Sukerman delving into every bit of minutiae behind the production, genesis, inspirations, etc. Q. A lengthy reel of outtakes, alternate opening sequence, rehearsal footage, multiple trailers, and a still gallery complete the wealth of bonus features found here. Additionally, the cover artwork is reversible, allowing for display of the original key art or newly commissioned artwork. Special features: brand new 4K restoration of the film from the 35mm original negative, brand new commentary track with Slava Sukerman, director, video interview with Slava Sukerman, video interview with Anne Carlisle, actress, director's introduction, Liquid Sky Revisited 2017, 50-minute making of documentary Q.